Hello and welcome to Tripartisan. Bella is really trying to hold in her laughter right now. Okay, so real quick. Okay.
I thought it was bipartisan.
No, I changed it.
Because you don't want to tell people that you're bi.
Okay. Yeah, because
it's true.
No, because you made fun of me for like an hour after I told you the name.
I like the name. I just
whatever.
I think you should just
Tripartisan.
now. It used to be bipartisan because she's bi.
I'm not. You just want me to be.
Why do I care?
Because you want me to be an available option for you.
Ew.
Is this all going to be in the podcast?
Yes.
I'm a
I
full
would.
sprouser.
Here's the thing: is I don't want it to be like too structured. Since this is
But
the
I think
first
this
episode.
is too little structure.
No, it's not. I like this.
I don't want Kate to be available. I'm happy with that she's with Dylan. I just want to put that on the record.
Okay. We're just gonna.
I forgot about Dylan.
We're just gonna skate right by. We're just gonna skate right by the lunacy.
Riley wants you to be available.
Well. Anyway.
She winked.
Let me do the intro real quick because we're like
what the
we're
frappuccino down.
We're a minute and a half.
I wanted to drink.
We're a minute and a half in, and I have
time.
yet to say anything of substance.
You said what the name was.
Okay, yeah. So this is Tripartisan. It's a podcast, and it's a political and current events, and maybe a little bit historical, but like barely, podcast that I came up with the idea for. Today is our first episode ever, the inaugural, that's the word, right?
Yeah.
Inaugural episode, and we are going to be discussing women's rights in America and across the world. A round of applause, please. All right. There's enough of that. There's enough of that. I'd like to introduce my two guests for today, the wonderful, beautiful, amazing, talented, smart, ambitious Bella Marshall.
Okay.
Yes.
Look, I know that I don't want you to be available, but I think you want me to be available.
Oh, you know it. And Riley's here too. No, I'm just kidding.
Ouch.
I'm just kidding. The lovely, fiery, passionate.
Fiery because she's a ginger?
Yes, that's the only reason.
Gingerist.
That's not a thing. Okay. We're gonna get into like the being offended and being like whatever part of this soon. You don't have to be offended by your hair color. You literally have never.
But you
faced
pointing
this
it out
struggle
makes
in your-
me offended.
Okay. And
We're not gonna body shame
All right.
here, even though we want to shame Riley really bad.
yeah, is
She
hair?
whispered, "I hate you." Put that on the
Would I
record.
Yeah, I want that on the record. Is hair color shaming body shaming? That's where we're gonna start today.
Is a hair color? Well, you can change your hair color. You can't necessarily change your body. So I'm gonna go ahead and say no. I mean, you can, but
But
that's
not
a
in
lot.
all cases.
Yeah, no. Like, I'm not gonna be able to change my
I
entire
can't change
facial
my
structure
skeleton.
without millions of dollars.
A body and a skeleton are different.
Yeah, but the skeleton is part of the body.
Yeah, I feel
Right,
like I can't
but
change
when
necessarily how long my arms are.
Yeah, but when I
Yeah.
think of a body, I don't immediately think of a skeleton.
Neither do
I
but
think
it's
of
to
the
get the point
skeleton
across.
with the meat around it.
Yeah.
The meat. The muscles and the ligaments and the fat and everything in there,
Cannibal.
Why? Okay, this has gotten away from me already, which I knew was gonna happen, but I just didn't think it would be this quick. Alright, so out of the gates, I just want to do a little, this is not really like an interview, by the way. It's gonna kind of just be a free discussion on the topics that I've written down and come up with, but I do want to start by asking you guys some baseline questions so that the people listening at home...
How did Sarge Giovanni? The only person listening.
What up, Sarge?
My therapist did tell me that she was going to listen to my podcast.
I forget her name already.
What?
I forget her name already. Michelle. Hi,
Yes.
Michelle.
Bella tried to get an appointment with my therapist,
It did not work.
but
No,
she
I'm
got denied.
going to Amanda.
So hi Michelle, if you're out there. She's gonna come up to me during our next like appointment and just be like, So you talked about me for too long in your podcast. And
Look,
yeah.
I sought after an appointment, did not get one, and now I'm with Amanda. So let's hope that
So
goes
it's
well.
fine. I don't even care that I got denied.
I didn't ask. I didn't mention a name, so that was probably on me.
Oh yeah, fair.
I need to be more assertive. I get that.
Yeah. Okay. So first question is, we'll start with Bella, then we'll go to Riley, I guess. Because I think Bella probably has an answer to this, but I don't know if Riley does.
Makes sense.
Do you identify yourself as a Republican, a Democrat, or other?
I was thinking about this the other day. I would probably, most of my views lean more Democratic, and I think I definitely have a more liberal mindset. On occasion, there are a few Republican points that I can take from, but overall, I would say my viewpoints are most definitely more Democratic and liberal. On occasion, there's an issue or two that I may even lean a little bit more conservative towards, but not very often.
Not
at
very
all.
often.
Like 1 in a million type of thing.
1 in a million.
And I'm leaving my mind open for the future.
Okay. So you don't want to, like, put yourself in the Democrat box and then in 10 years or whatever be like...
Because, stuff changes. And originally, the Democrat Party was considered...
the more conservative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put myself in that box.
We're going to get a fact check on that. Oh, I forgot to explain that.
That's a fact.
Can I explain that real quick?
Go for it.
Okay, so... a new part of the segment, or a new segment, I guess, a new part of the podcast, is I'm going to be doing something called fact-checking, which is important because you don't want to be spreading false facts. So, whenever I say something that I don't have the figure for, or I'm not 100% sure is accurate, or when someone else does it too, I'm going to remind myself that we need to fact-check it by saying, let's get a fact-check on that, and then I will fact-check them all, and in the next episode of the podcast... I will bring them all up. Yeah. But anyway, back to what you were saying. So you're mostly Democrat, but you don't want to put yourself in the box.
And especially when I'm learning new viewpoints, I want to say other just because I want to be able to hear both sides with a clear mind and be impartial and be able to understand where both people are coming from. So if it's a new issue, especially when I'm learning about it, I definitely want to be more impartial and hear both sides and then make my decision.
Facts. Okay, Riley?
That's a fact check.
That's a fact check.
Well, yeah, I kind of agree with Bella.
Yeah.
That, I'm kind of Democratic because when I think Republican, I associate it with Donald Trump.
And you don't
I'm
like
not
him?
really a fan. That's just my opinion.
Barf emoji.
Yeah. So, I really just don't agree with most of the stuff he's saying. And I would associate myself with more Democratic, I guess.
Hashtag Obama.
Hashtag Obama, yes. Thank you.
We'll get a fact check on it if hashtag Obama is a thing.
I'm going to make it a thing.
But yeah, you're still young.
Yeah, and I'm
We're
really,
all young.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, I'm the youngest.
Yeah, and I'd just like to point out, I turned 18 recently, and so I registered to vote. Thank you. I did register to vote. Make sure everybody needs to vote. If you're 18 or going to be 18 by voting, make sure to register to vote, because it's such an important part.
Everyone should vote.
Everyone should vote.
It's so important.
We should do a whole podcast on voting. Just the history of voting.
I just sit down and say, vote for like 2 hours.
Honestly. But yes, voting is so important. So registering to vote, and that's given me a lot of thinking, and I'm already trying to do my research, and because I don't want to make the wrong choice in my vote, but I obviously want to be there to vote and make my voice heard within in the polls.
I love that for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to answer the question too, just because they don't know me. You don't know me yet. Anyway.
I know you a little bit.
I think I know you.
Part of the reason why I wanted to call it tripartisan instead of bipartisan, not because Bella made fun of me.
I didn't make fun of you. I pointed out something that other people may see.
But
let the record show she did make fun of her.
She definitely did make fun of me. But the reason why I wanted to call it tripartisan is because I don't really find myself aligning with all of the viewpoints of either Republicans or Democrats. So I thought, there's like a word that describes having views from both sides, which is bipartisan, but I think of myself more as a tripartisan person. I have views from both of those two parties, and then also a lot of the third parties. Like, I am down with the Green Party, and I would consider myself pretty libertarian in a lot of ways. However, I definitely do see socially, I push way more left than I do right. But I like to say that I'm a California Republican and a Georgia or Ohio Democrat, which is what my dad says, because all of his friends here say, oh, you're so liberal, and then all of his friends back in California where he's from, they all say, yeah, you're too conservative, man, because it's just, you know,
I think a lot of it goes into money and bigger issues as well, and how that affects people. So I see why things such as the Green Party or socialism and things of that nature can be so appealing to certain people.
Oh, true, definitely. All right, so the next thing I want to ask, who is someone, it could be a politician, a celebrity, one of the people in this room if you want to make me happy, or a historical figure that inspires you politically, and more specifically on the subject of women's rights. Do you want to start, Riley? Or do you want Bella to start?
Give me a second.
Okay.
So someone I kind of aspire to have the achievements of is Taft.
Interesting.
He was the only person to ever be head of two branches of government. He was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and he was the President of the United States. So career-wise, that would be really cool. I don't necessarily know if I necessarily align myself with his politics.
Yeah,
but his achievements.
Okay.
Someone that I think is right now current that I like their policy right now is Ruth Bader Ginsburg, obviously.
Naturally.
She's a queen.
RBG.
Love her.
RBG. We talked about doing a whole podcast on her.
I could sit here and
we
talk.
might.
I could sit here and talk for
I want to nip the RBG conversation in the bud because I want to save that for another day.
I'm just gonna end it at I love her. Yes.
We love Ruth in this household.
Yes. And then another person I aspire to be like is the Kate Osmondson.
Aww.
She's just so wonderful and wise. But even the Obama family, they have done a lot, and they have done it very gracefully, and I think that is something to be respected.
Agree. Yeah. Love Michelle. Love Barack. Anyway.
And Bo, the dog. Can't forget about the dog.
Sorry, we didn't even mention their daughters, but...
I mean, they're fine.
Not important. Okay, Riley, do you have an answer?
Yeah. I mean, I really haven't given a lot of thought to looking up to politicians, really, but I think that a woman that I find really cool is Alice Paul, and what she did... What was that? Bella just rolled her eyes at me.
I almost talked about her, but she's...
Alright, Riley, go ahead. Explain for those at home and also the one in the room who doesn't know who Alice Paul is. No! Go ahead.
Okay. Do I know something that Kate doesn't know?
Okay, explain.
Well, you see... She had a very big part in the suffrage movement. Mm-hmm. She protested on outside of the Washington
Monument?
No, the White House.
Oh, okay.
I totally lost my words.
You're good.
In Washington, outside the White House.
You're okay. It's fine.
And then she was arrested for
that was for
going on strike.
Petitioning the president during a time of war because it was during World War One.
Yeah.
During World War One, and
I feel like I've heard about this, but I just probably
but
didn't
know most people obviously know.
Yeah, Susan B. Anthony.
Yeah, Susan B. Anthony.
Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna say she also did the hunger strike.
That's the Iron Jawed Angels. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
She is the main person.
Oh, okay.
So
I learn something new every day.
She's just awesome.
And she was definitely more liberal in the sense of that, and she was much more inclusive than Susan B. Anthony in
that's true.
African American rights.
I think that's something that we're going to talk about later, but I think it's important to bring it up right now since the conversation is emerging. And it's one of the questions that I actually wrote down. Do you think that women of color and disabled women and impoverished women, LGBTQ plus women, women of all different kinds and colors, backgrounds, yes. Do you think they're all included in modern feminism?
No. I think even back then that was an issue, and it's still an issue today. Obviously, feminism has progressed, and it is a more equal society. I'm not going to say completely equal because I don't think... Yeah. I mean, hopefully someday I'll get to that point, but but definitely not in the sense of... other backgrounds of women, because even if you look at the statistics, an African American woman already makes more than a white woman, and then it just goes further into less. Oh my gosh. No, big fact check. I'll fact check it right there. White women make more than any other ethnicity, and that's
actually not true. I gotta fact check that. Because
Asian women. That was my bad.
Asian women are killing the game.
Yes, but then even, there's
yeah.
even, and then there's so many stereotypes that go into different
That's so true, yeah.
things, and it's quite often when people are speaking on feminism, they do not include many women, and they don't account for many women's backgrounds, or their own struggles with their race, with disabilities, with whatever it may be.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that, I don't really know how to put this into words, but feminism just, when you say that somebody's a feminist, you can have, like, a different racist feminist, you can have, like, they're not, like, it's all not, one big group. Yeah. It's, like, there's different sections of feminism, and that's just not...
Yeah. That's a big thing that we need to, like, make a basis for, I feel like, in modern feminism, is egalitarian is not the same thing as feminist. Which, you know, neither are really, like, neither are bad things, or neither are exclusive in and of themselves, but feminism... And I'll read the definition because I want to, is defined as the theory of the political, economic, and social equality of the sexes. You know, you have nothing in there of the sexes of all races or the sexes of all gender identities, you know, like trans women or non-binary people, you know.
Exactly.
You don't have, like, all religions or all whatever, all ability levels. And I think another thing that's really interesting about feminism is the sex work industry, which I was thinking about not talking about, but I feel like it's kind of important.
It's very important, and that's something you can't brush over. It's a big part of it.
That's true. The sex work industry, kind of defining that as any kind of work such as pornography or prostitution. Some might even say stripping, although I don't think a lot of strippers consider themselves sex workers.
I'm not positive on
That's an interesting gray
area. Just a night job.
Just a night job.
Or day job.
Clearly Riley knows more about it than we do, but... Anyway. But, I think it's interesting. She just pretended she was sweating from her brow. But I think it's... I think now she's whispering threats under her voice.
Riley, do you want to tell us something?
No.
Maybe is it your night job?
That's why talking.
Okay. Anyway, but I think that the sex work industry is an interesting point on feminism because we have a lot of what people call white feminists, who are people who are feminists, but they don't bring up issues of people that are not out of what they call, like, kind of cookie-cutter women. So, like, they wouldn't fight for women of different religions or races, and they certainly wouldn't fight for women who are sex workers and are being either exploited in their industry or are just trying to not be exploited in their industry and are being discriminated against for their nature of work. Yeah. Which I think is kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah, and I don't think you're saying, I'm sure you're not saying that feminism is a bad thing. It's just about
absolutely not,
expanding it into making sure that women of all body types, women of all races, women of all religions, and all of the above, those women are also included and feel that they are being supported and brought up with other white women. And, I mean, the three of us sitting here, we're all white women.
Yeah.
And, I mean...
I'm actually 1.5%.
And it's just important to say, like, and recognize that these women are not getting enough recognition and that there needs to be a focus. And sometimes, you know, white women need to step back and say, okay, how can we bring everyone else up with us rather than just keep going up ourselves?
All right, I have a few quick questions about the nature of feminism and your personal opinions with feminism. And I probably know the answer to this, but I just want to get it in the recording.
I love that you have notes written up.
Thank you. I'm so prepared. Anyway, do you consider yourself a feminist, and why, Bella?
Riley, do you want to start? You
haven't started first.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I 100% define myself as a feminist because, as you said, the feminism is, by definition, the belief that both sexes should be equal, and there's really nothing more to that. I think when you hear the word feminism now, it's like a bad thing, and people only identify feminism as, like, I don't agree with this term, but a Nazi feminist, and they don't realize that there's more to like overpowering feminism.
Yeah,
it's the belief that both gender should be created equal, and I 100% believe that, and I think that not everybody does.
Yeah, naturally.
Yeah, and so I think that the world needs to change.
Yeah.
Basically.
Bella?
Can I just take a point from Riley real quick?
Yeah.
She said Nazi feminist, so feminazis is, I'm sure what she's referring to. And
Yeah.
earlier we had talked about different types of feminism, and I think it's important to say that there are many different sections of feminism.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah,
and some people, I mean, feminazis are considered, really are one sect of feminism,
Yeah.
and they're on the more extremist side, and you have to look and say, I align with myself with,
Moderate.
more moderate feminists.
I think the big thing is, like, anytime someone is radical, it's not a good
Yes.
thing.
For instance,
Yeah.
like, just quickly, like, ISIS considers themselves to be an Islamic group.
Yeah, but they're not upholding
Exactly.
the Islamic religion in a positive and good light.
Exactly.
That's
so
very true.
too much of anything, it's a bad
Yeah.
thing.
Also, I just want to talk about the feminazi term because it came up. Me and Bella talked about this because we both have Jewish heritage, and we talked about this the other day. The use of the word Nazi in modern society is so annoying.
Yeah.
So annoying.
Yeah,
Especially in the term of feminazi, because it's not the same thing in the slightest.
No.
Yeah.
It's very different because you have what Nazis stood for and what Hitler stood for and what the whole Holocaust was, which was a mass genocide of a religion and a heritage of people.
And more than one.
Yeah, more than one, but mainly
Yes. Yes.
Jewish people. However, you have people, and I see it mainly on the right. I do see it on the left too, but I see it mainly on the right, using the term Nazi out of place and calling people like feminists feminazis because they are trying to say that they are extreme. But that's not, Nazi is not synonymous with an extremist. It's a different thing, which I just want to, I mean, it's kind of out of the
people just are normalizing it now because it's used so
And
often.
I've seen, and like, it's not even about talking about such extremist groups, like,
Yeah.
or things like of that nature,
Yeah.
but it's, people are generalizing it so much that I've seen t-shirts that say, like, grammar Nazi on them. I've had teachers that say stuff like that, and it's just ridiculous, and it doesn't make sense to take something that was so large and so negative to make it something
just a synonymous term for extreme.
Yes.
Anyway, but let's get back into it. Bella, are you a feminist, and why?
Yes, I would definitely call myself a feminist, and one of the biggest reasons that I think that I am a feminist is because in the world, there's a lot of inequality, and I think feminism, if you obviously read the definition, and which we heard earlier, it stands for more than just, being equal between men and women, and I think, as we had spoke on earlier, it is trying to, I mean, I think that there are many women, and as time progresses, there are many more women that are going to try and make it more than just equality of genders. It says, but I believe it says both genders in the definition itself.
Does. It says the sexes. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's just about including everyone, and I believe that obviously everyone should be equal, no matter what. With anything. And I think feminism has the power to reach more than just men and women, more than just, white women.
Yeah.
And I think it has so much more potential.
Cookie cutter women.
Yes, cookie cutter women, yes. And I think it just has the power to reach so many more people. And when used positively, it is a good thing.
Yeah.
It is able to say, like, okay, this thing is wrong, let's fix it.
Absolutely.
And it's just about a group of women supporting each other. And men, too, don't get me wrong. Like, I know many
we have a
men.
whole section on that we're going to get
Oh,
to.
perfect.
I want to talk about the men, too. This is part of their issue, but I want to quickly say my alignment, too. I definitely consider myself to be a feminist, and I think that I need to bring up one, the definition we already read is very much how I align myself, and that's the Webster's Dictionary version of the definition of feminism, just in case anyone was wondering. There are different ones, but we go by Webster's in this household.
Totally.
Yeah, totally. But I think something that a lot of people kind of let out of their conversation with feminism is that I am a feminist not just for women, I'm a feminist for men too. I'm a feminist because I think like there is an inequality, and I won't say Well, I will say, I think women get the worst deal in the majority of the situations where there is an inequality. However, men still do not benefit every day from the societal patriarchy and from the ideas that feminism is trying to take apart.
And I think in the fight with feminism, a lot of people are just looking at white men and women, and
That's
they don't,
so true.
and they leave out African American men. If I'm not mistaken, still make less than white women. That's a fact check.
That's a fact check.
But
I don't know if that's necessarily true.
But definitely than some women.
Yeah,
than
for
some
sure.
sect of women, or like some. I remember seeing a statistic somewhere where certain men still make less than certain women, and like that's still like feminism. It says equality between, and that's why some people, when they hear feminism, they automatically assume that women are trying to be above or women are trying to be better.
But
than
that's
men.
not.
It's not the case. It's making sure everyone is equal.
And also, I think it's not necessarily just equality, because the word equality in and of itself means everyone gets the same, which I think is a good baseline to start things at if we could start the world from scratch. However, I think equity is a better word and a more applicable word, I guess, to the issue, because equity means that you notice, well, it doesn't actually, this isn't the definition, fact check on that, but equity in this case I would define as when you notice there's a disparity between two groups and you purposely try to uphold the lower group, the group that's at the disadvantage, so that they can be equal.
Yes.
So with things like affirmative action, and we see a big push to get women in the STEM field, it's not necessarily because it's not necessarily equal, I will say. It's not necessarily like, oh, men and women have equal chances to this, because we are trying to promote women and we're trying to give equity because we see less women, and we have for the past 100 years in these high positions of power and in high fields. And we want to get women and men on the equal platform, but from birth, women are told that they can't get to that equal platform. So we're trying to create programs, not us, but people are trying to create programs that uphold women so that the starting line would be at the same spot. But it's kind of retroactive, unfortunately. Yeah. Because you can't fix society overnight, and 100 years in the terms of the world and humanity is kind of overnight, you know?
It really is, and I mean, looking at the biggest picture, there are so many other issues that people are trying to tackle, and we can't all pause and say, let's work on this one thing. And although it is very important to us, I'm sure, like, that is something that is going to take time, and trying to fix the education system, trying to do gun reform, trying to do all of these other reforms that still on occasion take away from each other, because it's kind of almost working against each other. And something with feminism, I think a lot of people are afraid to call themselves a feminist.
Totally.
Because they say, because of this stigma around it. And and I've had people say, oh no, I'm not a feminist, I'm a peopleist, or I'm an allist, or something along those lines. Oh my gosh.
That's a different
that's
a different conversation. But people, that's annoying.
People say things about, oh no, I'm for everyone, but what they don't understand is that is feminism.
That is feminism at its core.
And that's why when people don't do the research and don't educate themselves on what it really is and just sit here and listen to what the media is, they think, oh, feminism's bad, or feminism is just for women, when in reality, feminism is for everyone. They just think because fem is in the word...
Female.
Yeah, that makes you think female. That's the first thing you go to.
Yeah, and I think, we have to take into account, like, yes, feminism focuses on women.
Because that's who's disadvantaged at this time.
Yeah, that's who's been disadvantaged throughout history. Like, yes, I'm not trying to say that men don't face struggles, or that men in different circumstances don't face struggles. But if you ask pretty much any rational person who has gotten the worst deal out of the two sexes throughout history, they're going to say women.
Right.
Yes.
Unless they're crazy.
Yeah.
Also, I apologize for my sniffling. I'm sick. But I do have a quick question going along with what Bella just said. Do you think feminism is mainstream, or is it still the minority?
What do you mean?
So do you...
Shut up.
Do you think that the ideas of feminism, and also the concept of the feminism itself, the word and being called a feminist and stuff, do you think that's a majority viewpoint, like most people align themselves with that, or do you think it's a minority of people?
I
Minority.
would not say. I would say minority for sure.
Yeah.
There is still the stigma around it. So even you can be the most left-wing person ever, and you still may be afraid to call yourself a feminist.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, of the stigma around it. And I think to go, I guess I'm kind of wording it in a different way, but the ideas of it, I think. The ideas of feminism really just depend on the place, and people aren't going to call themselves a feminist maybe because they don't understand fully what a feminist is, or that people can say, oh, I believe in this, this, and this, and it lines up exactly with feminism, but they're not going to call themselves a feminist. And right now, our society is so divided,
right?
You know, Republican, Democrat, and that is a big issue. So, and I think it really just depends on the area. Like, that is a big...
That's really true, yeah.
You know
You're
what I'm saying? Because you're not going to get as many people in Alabama saying that they're feminists as you are
I think Alabama's the most feminist of states. I really do. I think...
you, Kate?
Yeah, they're very liberal. They're
Fact
very...
checked?
Fact check on that, but...
or Texas.
They're only 99.9% fact check conservative.
Yes, and then you go over to California or New York or somewhere that's traditionally more liberal.
Wyoming.
Vermont. Anywhere
Bella doesn't think Wyoming's a real state, by the way.
That's another podcast.
That's another podcast. What if I just make this podcast it's not even, like, political anymore, it's just...
Well, that's a policies one.
Making fun of Bella?
That's about the government.
Okay, I don't know about that.
We can do a conspiracy podcast.
Alright, Riley, do you have anything to add?
I think that people are just so afraid to be themselves, kind of, or, like, take a stand or
take
have their
ownership.
own ideas or have an idea that's not go with the flow, because feminism is not popular, I guess, in our little town, and most people that I know.
Wow, Riley, tell everyone our address, why don't you?
Kate lives on.
No, don't say. We can't do that. This goes on the internet. Okay.
Anyways.
But
a little town that we're in, I think that not many people associate themselves with feminism or don't want to be associated with feminism.
That's totally true, yeah.
Thinking back a few years, I remember my friend, she wore a feminist shirt, and there was someone that called her feminazi. And I see accounts online, and they're from kids at our school that say, like, feminazi and things of that nature, and yes, that is a real part, but they're doing it to make fun. It's not about...
A lot of it is making fun.
Yes, so I think...
Can you not sip your Frappuccino into the microphone?
You literally didn't hear... I'm like 10 feet away,
and
you didn't even hear it.
Whatever. It doesn't matter.
Post-editing, Kate, play it back.
Okay.
Now, wow.
Okay, well, just to let you guys know, in America, just the U.S., so worldwide, it's probably much lower, but 60% of women say that they're feminist to some degree. To some degree, I think the strong feminist category on this was only like 10% or something. Fact check on that. But, so the majority of women call themselves a slight feminist or someone who's feminist in their ideas but isn't quite so shouting it from the mountaintops. And then only 33% of men consider themselves feminists to any degree.
We gotta change that.
Yeah. A lot of... and on the reversal of that, a lot of the people who considered themselves to be anti-feminists, I think it was 6% of men consider themselves to be anti-feminists, which is compared to like 2 to 3% of women.
And again, it's the stigma around it and not knowing what it is.
Yeah, and I think a lot of men think, oh, feminist, that's hating men, that's blah, 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 but that's really not, you know, I will say there are probably some feminists who hate men.
Yes.
But...
Even though we have a right to.
Even though it's just right.
That was just a prank.
Just a prank. But that's a very interesting statistic that comes from the Washington Post. They did a whole thing on it. But I have another quick question before we move on to the next section that's not just feminism but goes along with it. Do you think that America is ready for a female president?
Ooh.
That's a good question, I know.
Don't get me wrong. I would love a female president.
But you don't think?
I don't think America's ready. We just had our first African-American president.
I totally agree.
Directly after, we go to this very conservative old white man. So
Orange.
orange man.
Yeah.
So I don't get me wrong. I would love to see a female president. I would love to see a gay president. I would love to see different ethnicities in the White House. But seeing as we've only in the history of America had one president.
Yeah.
And then just diverted back immediately after.
Yeah.
I don't think America's ready.
I totally agree.
I'm ready.
I'm ready. I'm fully ready.
Yeah. If we're 3 ready, then that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's
Vote
all
Bella 2036.
You can't be president in 2036. You have to be 37, don't
You
you?
have to be 35, Kate.
Oh.
That's a fact check that I checked myself.
No, it's right, because I just learned that in government.
Yeah,
Cool.
You have to be 35, and in 2036, I'll be 35. So
When I
go
don't
Bella.
know things, why am I even here?
We just taught Kate 2 new things.
Yeah, you guys taught me 2 new things today.
High five,
Aw,
boys.
friends. Okay, anyway. But yeah, I definitely don't think America in its current state, especially following the very conservative presidency and administration that we've had, I do not think that a female president is on the horizon. I see a lot of people trying to push Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren, which, I'll be honest, not a fan of either of them, but I see a lot of people trying to push them because they're like, we want a woman president, which I think, we shouldn't say we want a woman president. We should say we want a good president, and if it's a woman, then it's a woman.
And we need to focus on the issues in this moment because of where society's at right now. We need to focus on the issues. And there's a lot of people, I think, getting behind Mayor Pete because he is gay. And don't get me wrong, that'd be awesome too. But we need someone that's going to fix the issues, not just be a figurehead for these different... don't
be identity politics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which, identity politics is, in and of itself, a different episode.
Yes.
But I think that it's kind of insane whenever I see, women saying, no, you have to vote for Hillary Clinton because she's a woman. No, you don't. If you don't like Hillary Clinton, you don't vote for her.
But don't vote for Trump.
Yeah. You
Excuse
vote
me.
for whoever the better...
A little tickle in my throat.
You're so crazy. I think you should always vote for who you think the better candidate is. And in my opinion, I would have said Hillary Clinton would have been the better candidate.
Yeah.
Yes.
However,
Compared to the two.
Yeah, but I don't think she
Was
would
the
have been
best female. I don't think she's the best female candidate.
I don't think
we could
she's the
have.
best in general. I don't think she's the best female.
Okay, come on, Oprah, Ellen, where are you?
I want to
If
see
Ellen
Oprah.
was president, I don't even know. I would love it.
Canada would come to our country.
Yeah.
Would they though?
Canadians,
Justin Trudeau, he's gotten a lot of flack in the news recently
because of blackface.
because of it happens.
No excuses.
It actually doesn't happen.
Not anymore.
Bad
it shouldn't.
idea. I used to love Justin Trudeau though. That was very disheartening.
My heart broke when I saw that
I
in the
was
news.
so upset. Riley's just like, who?
The Prime Minister of Canada,
Yeah,
Riley.
I know.
I used to love him, but then that happened, and I'm like, can't support you anymore, even though you're gorgeous.
Folks, with Halloween coming up, or even just in general.
Oh yeah, don't be blackface.
Don't be blackface. Don't be quote unquote yellowface. Don't be brown. I don't care what face, as long as if it's not yours, don't wear it.
Yeah,
You can wear a mask of a Wolverine or something.
Also, this is an interesting point of contention because I saw something about people saying don't wear Obama masks or stuff if you're gonna be Obama for Halloween, or if you want to be someone for Halloween that's not your race, don't wear a mask of them, which I think is a different issue, and I'm not quite sure how that fits into it. I would say always err on the side of caution, but definitely don't paint your own face because that's racist.
No.
Yeah.
And don't be anything derogatory either.
Just don't be
Have
derogatory.
common sense.
Yeah, just be...
If you wouldn't want somebody dressing up as a cracker and saying I'm a white person, don't wear it.
Yeah. Or if you just wouldn't want, I don't know, a racial divide in the country and white supremacy, maybe just don't wear blackface.
Perfect.
Riley's crying her eyes out laughing at Bella. Anyway. Okay. So we've talked about women.
I'm gonna be a saltine for Halloween.
Oh dear Lord. Anyway, moving on. Riley, you need to... Okay. Compose yourself.
You have chocolate in your teeth.
Compose yourself. Oh my Lord.
It's right in between your teeth and it makes you look like you have a gap. This is new.
This gonna be like 10 minutes of us laughing.
Do we cut it out or leave it?
No, we leave it.
Well,
I want them to know that we're buddies.
I don't like Riley.
Shush.
I hate you.
I hate you, Mom.
I have chocolate all over my lips.
Anyway, but
Anyways.
I want to move on to, we talked about women a lot so far and feminism, and obviously we did address men, but I want to talk about toxic masculinity. Masculinity, sorry, I couldn't pronounce the word. All right, and I want to, before we get into it, I just want to read you guys a quick statistic.
Oh, no.
In 2017, men died by suicide 3.54 times more than women, and that's from the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. And I think that this is one of the main issues that faces men today that a lot of men don't recognize, which is toxic masculinity and sort of the idea in society that you have to man up and, like, absorb your emotions, kind of.
Yeah.
Which
is ridiculous because it's just ridiculous because I think that when you, how do I put this into words? When you are describing yourself as a feminist, you are fighting for the rights of both men and women.
Absolutely.
And I think that there is a very specific rule that a man has to fit and a very specific role that a woman has to fit.
Yeah,
and
so true.
In society, yeah.
In society, yeah. And I think that when people think of men, they think of really, like in shape, like, very deep voice, and in
tough,
charge,
never
dominant,
cry.
never cries,
Yeah.
And it's not right, because there's so many men that aren't those things, I guess.
I'd like to read a quick quote. Sorry, Bella, I just cut you off.
Good.
A quick quote from the lovely Emma Watson. Riley just got excited. I've seen young men suffering from mental illness, unable to ask for help for fear that it would make them look less macho. In fact, in the UK, suicide is the biggest killer of men between 20 and 49 years of age, eclipsing road accidents, cancer, and coronary heart disease. I've seen men made fragile and insecure by a distorted sense of what constitutes male success. Men don't have the benefits of equality either. And I think that's a very true statement that I think a lot of feminists, and I'm not generalizing here, but I think a lot of feminists overlook that kind of fact. And I think a lot of people who say that they're Menonists and also people who say that they're anti-feminists.
Not Menonist, like, not Mennonite, sorry.
Not Mennonite, Menonist. Yeah.
So, like, what men would say is men are better.
Yeah. But, like, I think a lot of people don't take that into account because there is, like, a big disparity. And I grew up with two brothers, and you both have brothers. And, like, I think, growing up in my childhood, my parents were pretty liberal even. But there was still an expectation for boys to be, like, macho and to be kind of, like, manly.
Boys don't want to cry. Boys feel like they're not allowed to cry. And I think that was a big thing. Like, I got very lucky, and I think my mom made it very obvious that it was okay for my brother to cry. Like, it's not something to be ashamed of. Everybody has emotions. You're allowed to show them.
That's so true.
That's kind of the opposite, because I had a friend, and their dad basically told them that what?
I'm just trying to think who this might be. Go on.
Oh. And, his dad basically told him, well, not told him, but he kind of, like, got the idea into the head that you can't play with, like, girl stuff. Cause
like dolls.
Because my friend, he, like, dolls. Like, he, like, liked playing with dolls and, like, doing hair and, like, having girl toys. And my friend's dad was, basically did not allow it and told him that he needs to play with, like, boy toys, he needs to play with these, and he doesn't want him to cry and stuff like that, which whenever I, like, asked him, like, how does that make you feel or something like that, he's like, I just don't think it's normal.
I think that also goes into a lot of parents seem to fear their children being LGBT.
Yes.
QIA+.
I was actually going to go into that because 58% of LGBTQ identifying people are women, and that does, I don't know if that accounts for the trans population or if that's just going gender at birth, but I think it's going with the trans population, so I think, the majority of people who are identifying LGBT are women, because I think men, there's no, like, women are more likely to be, that's not a thing. I think more men are afraid and feel like it's not okay to talk about that and to come out and to say, like, no, I'm a woman, or say, no, I'm attracted to men, or anything of that nature, yeah.
I'd be interested to see a fact check in the estimate of closeted men versus women.
Yeah. The problem with that is it's hard to...
Well, yes.
Yeah, but that's true.
I'm curious estimate if there's any out there.
We'll look it up. We'll go to the Google. And I'd like to ask, do you guys think that men are less likely to come out? Do you think, like, not that I just planted the seed in your head, but do you think it's that, or do you think men just don't, like, are just less likely to be LGBT?
I think so, just because, like how we were talking about earlier, men are, like, afraid of being different, kind of, and afraid to step outside of that stereotype of being a man and being not cryable and stuff like that.
No cry.
Well, and I think another thing with that is a lot of men, because they're supposed to be, they feel that they need to be so strong and not, like, cry, not show emotion, be very, like, clean cut. Gay men are perceived as more, like, flamboyant more emotional, and I think that's a big stigma and a big stereotype of gay men, and I just think that a lot more goes into it, and I think that men are definitely less accepted in communities.
That's true. Yeah. So 61% of young men in Britain, so this is like late teens to I think like 30s or so, fact check on that, 61% of young men in Britain said that they feel pressured to man up, 55% said that crying in front of people would make them feel like less of a man, and 53% say that they feel that society expects them to never ask for emotional support or stability. So I think that's a very interesting part of what toxic masculinity is, because we talk about toxic masculinity a lot of times under the guise of it's harmful to women, because it's this kind of men are above patriarchal, that's a hard word to say, like, yeah, kind of viewpoint, but it's also very much hard and disheartening for the men involved in these situations as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's tough, yeah. Quick question before we move on. How do you guys feel about the phrase, boys will be boys?
Okay.
Riley just went, okay.
I have a story about this.
Yeah.
So, I was on a missions trip.
Riley, don't yell into the mic, please.
Because Riley loves Jesus!
I was on a missions trip, and there was this one boy, and he was kind of on the perverted side, and very, like, he would like look at our butts whenever we were like bending over or something. But there was this one instance where our friend was hanging something up on the wall, and here was this boy. He's older than me, so I would say about 17 or 18 years old, or 19, I don't really know, somewhere in there, and he took a picture of her butt.
Just the...
He takes a picture of her butt?
He takes a picture of her butt.
Yeah.
So we decide, like, that is obviously not okay. So we decide to go and tell one of the elders there.
Yeah.
And I love this woman to death. But this one thing that she said to us, we told her about it, and she's like, oh, boys will be boys.
But boys shouldn't be boys.
Yeah.
But boys shouldn't be boys.
Boys shouldn't be perverts and sexual assaulters.
Yeah, but that it just normalized the fact that men are able to look at women's butts and objectify them without having any consequence. And it made me so angry. True. So I hate that phrase.
I do as well. I think it's very much like harmful, not just to women, but also in the sense that boys have to be man up, and boys get to fight with each other because that's, like, okay.
Right.
But it's also very much, and it goes into our next topic, which is violence and sexual assault. It's very much an excuse by usually men, and by usually older men. In Riley's case, it was, I assume, an older woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was, like, 70, 60.
Okay, so yeah, that makes sense. Where it's usually an excuse to say, oh no, sexual assault isn't a bad thing, or no, sexual assault isn't, like, or that's not sexual assault, or that's not bad, or that's not whatever, that's not harassment, because it's just how men are, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not, and it's not okay, and I think we need to raise young men with the idea that, yes, you can be a boy, and you can be macho if you feel like it, but also, you're not more of a man if you are demeaning to women.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
That's so true. Okay. I'm going to read some violence and sexual assault statistics, and then we're going to talk about each one. So, just so you know, all of these are coming from the UN and also one.org. So, the last one is going to come from one.org, but the rest are coming from the UN and UNICEF.
We love the UN.
We love the UN in this household. Okay. It is estimated that almost half of all women murdered were killed by their partner, compared to about 6% of the men who are murdered. 1 in 10 girls, and that's about 120 million worldwide, have experienced sexual violence, not harassment, violence, at some point in their lives, and 1 in 5 women have. So that's the previous statistic, meaning girls younger than 18, 1 in 5 women older than 18 and older. And 33,000 girls will become child brides today alone, while we are having this conversation. And that's about 650 million women are married as child brides.
Is that a year?
That is, I think a year. Well, yes, that's right. That makes sense, yeah. Or that's how many are today, like...
Mm-hmm.
Child brides,
yeah.
Still child brides. So, yeah.
That statistic is insane. And most people don't even know that child, like, kidnapping and bride kidnapping is a thing. They don't even understand that that is a real thing that is still happening in our society.
Yeah, that's still very prevalent.
Yeah.
It's not a Game of Thrones thing. It's a real thing.
No, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And violence and sexual assault, like, with that, like, I think people also need to realize, going back to toxic masculinity, men can be abused in relationships as well. Yeah. And I'm not, there's such a large stigma around men saying anything and speaking out, and I'm not saying that, and I don't know the statistic, but...
I have it. It's 1 in 33 for men have been, and that's just for attempted or completed rape, and that comes from RAIN.org. So.
And it's just about also, like making sure that it's equal and saying, like, men are being abused too, and... Yeah. It's, I mean, obviously it's awful what's happening to women, and that needs to stop immediately. But there's so many countries and other areas of the world that are still living where we may have been 100 years ago. Just living in the sense that children can be kidnapped and forced to marry men. Like, and
also, like, sorry, I cut you off. But anyway, also, it's not just an illegal practice. Which is, I think a lot of people say, like, oh yeah, it's illegal, what more do you want us to do? It's already illegal. It's not in a lot of parts of the world. It's not. People every day pay for their brides and pay other families money so that they can buy their daughters, buy their sisters, buy their whatevers, so that they can have them as their wife. And then those families use that money to buy their sons' wives. And usually the sale is made before the women are even probably like 16.
Oh, yeah, definitely before that. And it's just people need to educate themselves on what's really going on in the world, because so many people don't know about so many issues that are happening. I know we're going to talk about a few later as well. But it's just, like, ridiculous to hear about all of the things that are going on in the world, and then... If I went up to someone on the street, how many people would know about that?
Very few.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's another thing a lot of people don't know about. Riley, do you have anything to add before we move on?
Well, I was just going to say, like, a lot of stuff that people don't know about. Like the bride kidnapping, as what you said, and FGM, and...
Yeah. We're going to talk about that later.
Yeah.
Oh, weird.
That's
gonna
fine.
be-
That's fine. I
That'll,
didn't say it.
that'll be in the
Yes.
second episode of this because
I
we're
didn't know
already
that.
we're already almost at an hour and I don't want to push us too far over.
Okay.
But I do want to talk about something that I don't know if you guys even know about, which is female infanticide. Have you ever heard of this?
I have not.
I don't think I've heard the term.
All right. Well, female infanticide is the infanticide is the euthanization of unlawfully of very young children, so infants, killing infants.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd also like to just say all of the statistics and stuff I'm talking about with this come from the BBC and also the World Bank. And female infanticide, otherwise known as gendercide, is killing female babies due to gender bias.
I actually didn't know about that. I just didn't know that was the
Yeah.
So
the
you
term.
were killing them because they're
Women.
Yes. So this is very common in countries like China and India, particularly when China was had their one
Their
child
ban.
one child rule, which is where only one child per family or per couple, unless you had like twins or triplets and stuff. But it's a thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, like, I remember, I think I learned about this like a long time back when I was pretty young. And I legitimately thought it was just something that, like, I had made up or, like, thought about. And then I went to research this. And no, it's real.
Yes. And
It's prevalent.
I don't
now
know.
as ever.
I don't know as much about this as other subjects, but I still believe it 110% that it's real. There's so many different countries where women are sought as like a disgrace and less.
That's so true.
And so to get rid of the quote unquote shame of having a daughter, just leave them in a field, and that's a real thing. Like, people will literally just leave babies in fields. It's
particularly for financial gain, usually, is why it's done. Men in these countries have, and kind of all around the world, have more income power because men are awarded higher positions. And in a lot of the countries where this is prevalent, women can't get good jobs or any jobs sometimes.
right.
So families will have a baby. And I want to make it clear, this isn't very often an abortion because a lot of the countries where this happens, you don't really find out the gender of your baby until they're born kind of thing. It's usually done amongst poorer peoples who don't have the money to go to a doctor and do that kind of thing. But it's definitely not usually an abortion. It can be, but it's usually the baby's born, it's a female, we kill it or we abandon it. So it's done for financial gain because women are seen as less able to care for and provide for the family monetarily, which is so crazy to think. Because doesn't this sound like something out of like a weird novel? Like, doesn't this sound like a Handmaid's Tale?
I think so many of the things we've talked about, most people would hear this and think, that can't be true.
But it is.
And it's
It
ridiculous.
It's 100% a thing.
It's terrible.
Yeah. And like, the caste system in India and also just the overall kind of hierarchy of rich over poor in these countries and around the world is a big reason why it's common, which I think is a very interesting thing because you usually look at this and you say, and you talk about it in the context of human rights, but which you should because it's a human rights violation.
Right.
But it's also coming from an economic basis. Like, isn't that so weird that people are killing their daughters because they can get more money from having a son?
Which it's just insane
Yeah.
how many things are just go, like, untalked about in society.
Yeah, which a really interesting thing. It's not necessarily for this reason, but the worldwide female population has slowly been declining since 1960, which I don't know if you guys knew that.
I did not.
And most people don't know about that because it's like 0.4 or whatever %. But Fact check, yeah, but I think it was like 49.9% were women in 1960, and now it's like 49 point something % are women now.
But still, you gotta think, like, big picture, that's a
in
lot
the
of people.
big picture, that's millions of people,
Yeah.
which is insane, really,
Yes.
truly. Worldwide, you know,
Where are these women going?
Yeah, where are they? Is it female infanticide, or is it violence against women? Do we really need women?
Do we need women?
We all came from a woman. But do we really need them? Riley just learned. Yeah. But I think it's a very interesting thing to bring up because that's a very not known fact about women's rights and also women's rights in the context of violence and assault on women.
Yes.
Yeah. Have you guys ever heard of the book The War on Boys? I just want to finish out this podcast with this because I remembered it and I need to bring it up.
I've maybe heard the title, but I've not read it.
Okay, so The War on Boys is a book, and the premise of the book is talking about how boys are scrutinized, and basically it's the whole boys will be boys concept written into a book and made like 17 chapters long.
Was it like a sarcastic book, or was
No,
it
it's 100% for real. And craziest thing is it's written by a woman, and I was like, how? But basically the main gist of the book, and I'll be honest, I have never read the book, but I did watch a video on summaries and also an analysis of the book, and I'm pretty sure my dad read it, and we talked about it, and he was like, this is a good book, and I'm like, Dad, you're stupid. But the big thing about the book is it says, like, well, boys are expected to come to class and sit still. Young boys can't do that, but yet we expect women to do it.
Why can young girls do that
Yeah.
when young boys can?
And a lot of people say, well, young boys, they have more... No, they don't have more energy. Young boys are just as likely to, like, be rambunctious as young women. The only difference is how we treat them in society. When a young girl runs around and, like... is crazy.
That's not ladylike.
That's not ladylike. That's not allowed. But when a young boy does it, we're like, oh, boys will be boys. How cute, you know?
Yes.
I get told that nonstop at
Be ladylike.
my house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What can you do?
Yep.
All right, so I want to thank you guys so much for coming on to the podcast, for talking with me.
Of course.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I really, you're the best people ever.
She's pointing to me.
She's
I'm-
actually fact checking me.
We're holding hands right now. Yeah, but I want to thank Riley for coming on and taking time out of her busy schedule to talk to me about her favorite thing in the world. And I want to thank Bella for agreeing to come onto my podcast more than once and to talk to me for hours at a time about subjects that no one else will ever discuss with me.
Well, quite honestly, we talk about these subjects
we do
so often.
You call me like 9 times a minute and talk
Oh
to me about
my
this.
god. The dramatics of that. Let's do a fact check.
You've called me 2 nights in a row at like 10, so...
You know, Kate, I did, but we
Riley's like jealous.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I get it.
Alright,
Do you want group calls?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Anyway, but thank you from all 3 of us for listening, even if you didn't want to.
Hi, Mr. Giovanni.
Hi, Mr. Giovanni. Yeah. Hi, Mom.
Maybe Michelle.
Maybe Michelle. Full circle. This has been Tripartisan.